The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has said she has lost confidence in the bungling Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, Craig Guildford, over the Maccabi fan ban.
Nick Timothy MP tells us that the police used an AI hallucination to justify their ban on Jewish fans.
I don't think she actively wanted the ban. I don't think she was driven by the communalism herself or anything like that. I think she was presented with a likely decision by the police in advance, and she, I think, failed as Home Secretary at this point because she should have really interrogated that, because it was a really extreme thing to do. Even if there had been legitimate intelligence behind it, she should have wanted to know what it was and why they were reaching that extreme conclusion.
Tim, on Friday we discussed the whole controversy around the banning of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from that match at Aston Villa. We spoke to Johnny Gould, lifelong Aston Villa fan, a Jewish man, a history of sport in his family, and how disgraceful it had all been. And I made the comment today, not that this is a laughing matter, but there is something vaguely comical about the growing incompetence of Craig Guildford, who is the Chief Constable at West Midlands Police. I said he's starting to make Inspector Clouseau look positively competent, because we keep on having revelation after revelation about just how badly they cocked up this entire handling of this match.
Well, the Telegraph, speaking to Nick Timothy MP, had a headline saying that the West Midlands Police had lied and lied and lied again. We now know there was another lie, which was over the nature of the data they presented to MPs when explaining their reasons for stopping Maccabi fans from attending that match. Now, Nick Timothy joins us. Can you explain to us, thank you for being here, can you explain to us, you have been doggedly following this story, you've really been the voice in Parliament on this, and it's a story which says so much about the way that the state and various state apparatuses behave in relation to Islamic groups. Can you explain to us this latest detail? What is it that the West Midlands Police got wrong, and how did they get it wrong?
Well, first off, you're totally right. Some people think this story is about a football match. And why do you care about these foreign football fans being able to come here? The point is, we need to know whether the police do their jobs without fear or favour, and we need to know who holds power in modern multicultural Britain, because what has happened in this story is West Midlands Police suppressed information which showed that the Israeli supporters were actually going to be attacked by armed Islamists, and then fabricated intelligence to say that the Israelis were uniquely violent, and that's why they needed to be banned. Along the way, lots of lies have emerged through the different interrogations by the Select Committee and through the media and parliamentary questions and so on. And one of them is about the use of artificial intelligence. And I think one of the really striking things is the arrogance with which the police denied the use of AI when there are countless press releases online saying that they're entering into these exciting new partnerships with tech companies using AI. And they've answered freedom of information requests to members of the public saying, no, we don't use AI, and no, we don't have an AI policy. And at the Select Committee the first time, the Chief Constable was asked about this, and he said, no, we have very thorough investigations. And the second time, as if this made it any better, he said, no, it wasn't AI, we Googled it.
Right.
And they've since had to write to the committee and say, actually, we're very sorry, we found out we did use AI.
And this was they were using AI to find out about the past behaviour of Maccabi fans, is that correct?
Yes, and this I think is one of the suspicious things about it, because the whole exercise was about trying to manufacture information to justify a predetermined decision, which was to ban the Israeli fans. So it seems as though the police were scouring the internet trying to find examples of Israeli supporters behaving inappropriately. And as they did that, there was an hallucination by the AI program they were relying on, which said that Maccabi Tel Aviv had played West Ham in London, and that game never took place. But that claim made its way into a proper intelligence paper that was presented to the committee that decided to ban the supporters.
Right.
Can I just take this opportunity to just say to our audience and others who may be watching or listening, this is why you don't trust AI. You're
Thank
better
you.
off with trusted news sources like
Yes.
the Telegraph. Nick
Buy a
Timothy.
newspaper.
Indeed, buy a newspaper. Hashtag buy a paper. Hashtag listen to a podcast.
But in all seriousness, the government does spend a lot of time saying AI will fix everything in the future and will fix the bureaucracy. And the impression is given that AI is totally morally neutral. The AI just gathers
Yes.
the data and produces reasoned analysis which is above politics. But we now hear something that sounds like it's actually replicating the prejudices or confirming the prejudices of the people looking for certain answers.
Yeah, and I think, in this instance, it didn't scour the internet and find a wrong claim. It just invented it,
Just invented
which
one.
is what AI sometimes does. And I think this is important because if the police are going to use, unreliable new technologies that aren't fully understood to inform very sensitive decisions, and they don't have any kind of policies or training or a culture where, even if you've used AI as a quick brainstorm, you don't then seek out the primary sources to make sure it's real, then that's obviously very worrying. But the big story is all about why they did this, and it was because they feared violence from armed Islamists in the area and probably travelling into Birmingham as well, and they lied about it. And I think that the AI thing is interesting. It's an important subplot, and actually we need to explore what police forces are doing with AI. But the big story is all about police integrity and whether institutions of the state are putting themselves in the service of extremists and Islamists, because that certainly seems to be what West Midlands Police have done.
I totally agree with you on the overriding point that you're making here, and it is a very, very serious one. However, what this does is play into a narrative that the police have one job, right? And that's to investigate stuff and find out the truth and police accordingly to that. I think in a situation where you have got the actual police allowing AI to carry out an investigation on their behalf that then reaches the wrong conclusion that they in turn don't interrogate is hugely worrying. Because at the end of the day, if you're devolving your key responsibility to the internet, reaching the wrong conclusion, and you're to be found so wanting in your kind of curiosity that you then take that as read and actually contribute to a situation where you're creating division and civil unrest effectively. Because this was all done in the name of community cohesion. I would humbly suggest that Aston has never felt more divided, precisely because of the way West Midlands Police mishandled this situation, Nick.
Yeah, look, there are undoubtedly going to be consequences for public trust in the community, in the police. The way in which people of different racial and religious backgrounds view the police and view one another, and it's undoubtedly going to make things worse. This is why it's so important that original founding principle of the police, Robert Peel, who founded the police, said the police are the public and the public are the police. I.e., the police can only do their jobs with public consent, but that's the consent of all of us. That's not the consent of one sectarian group or one religious group or one racial group. It's meant to be for all of us. And as soon as a police force suborns itself before one particular identity group, it's over. And these are really, really important questions.
Shabana Mahmood has responded in the comments. She said it's unacceptable. She said she's going to restore powers to the Home Secretary to sack people like the head of West Midlands Police. Are you satisfied with what she's done? Did she do it quick enough?
No, not really. So the evidence first started to come to light that this was all a fabrication back in November. And we've had to drag the Home Office kicking and screaming, really. I called 2 urgent questions in the House of Commons. There have been many, many news stories now in the newspapers, ultimately picked up by the BBC in the last week or so. And she came to the House today and said she no longer has confidence in him. That's good. She's catching up with, I think, what most of the country would have thought back in November. Certainly what most people would have thought had they seen the Select Committee appearances. And she said she doesn't have the power to sack him directly because, and actually she got party political here. She blamed the Conservatives. In fact, she blamed me because I worked in the Home Office at one point.
Is this because of the introduction of police crime
commissioners?
Yes.
So in 2011, the coalition government abolished police authorities, which were just committees of councillors, and replaced them with police and crime commissioners. And when they did that, they removed, this is a bit technical, but they removed Section 42 of the Police Act 1996, which explicitly said the Home Secretary can sack a Chief Constable.
Yeah.
Because that's the job of the Police and Crime Commissioner. The model is supposed to be local accountability. But it retains Section 40 of the Police Act 1996, which said that when a police force is failing, as a whole or even in part, the Home Secretary retains the power to direct the Police and Crime Commissioner to basically follow her instruction. It doesn't set limits. It doesn't say you can do this, but you can't do that. It says that the Home Secretary has the power to direct the Police and Crime Commissioner. That hasn't been tested because this hasn't happened since the 2011 Act. But it seems very clear to me, if you read that legislation, that she does have the power to tell the Police and Crime Commissioner to sack the Chief Constable.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what more would you like to see done beyond the sacking of the Chief Constable?
Well, there are now questions for everyone who are involved with this. So there's the Chief Constable's job is on the line, obviously, but actually there's a series of senior police officers at West Midlands who also took part in the Select Committee sessions and misled Parliament. There's a series of senior officers who took part in the so-called intelligence gathering. We need to know which of those people were doing this knowingly, whether they were doing it under orders, that kind of thing. So there's got to be more accountability in the force. The Police and Crime Commissioner has been a disgrace. He's been completely invisible, hasn't done a thing, seems more offended by the scrutiny than by the actions of the force. Correct.
Right. And who is that?
He's a guy called Simon Foster. He's a Labour politician.
Right.
And I think that there are questions for the governance of policing. So at one point, the police said, actually, our work was peer-reviewed by the UK Football Policing Unit, which is part of the National Police Chiefs Council. And they said we did our job excellently. Well, actually, we've now seen their peer review document, and they didn't say that. But also, they were part of the process of assessing the intelligence and fetching intelligence from overseas. So that's police officers marking one another's homework in a way that I think is wholly inappropriate. But there are questions for the government because Shabana Mahmood knew at least 8 days before the decision was announced that a ban was under active consideration, but she didn't do anything to stop it. She didn't ask any questions about it. One can only conclude that she didn't see the problem with it. And in one of the questions I asked her today, I asked whether the Prime Minister had been notified at this point, because nobody knew the answer to that question. And she said, well, actually, she didn't say anything. She didn't answer it, which I think it leads us to the conclusion that actually the Prime Minister also knew about it in advance and also didn't ask the questions he should have.
When you talk about the international investigation, it should also be pointed out, Nick, that there was a suggestion that Maccabi Tel Aviv fans had previously behaved badly at a football match in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And then the mayor of Amsterdam came forward to say, no, that was complete nonsense. And that, again, that lends itself to serious questions about the police scrutinising some of the claims that were made adequately, as we would expect officers of the law to do. Just on the Home Secretary, without making it too personal, is she compromised because she's a British Muslim? In dealing with this, do you think, Nick?
I certainly hope not, because I don't want anybody to feel they can and can't make certain decisions based on their own identity. Part of the complication for Shabana Mahmood is that she's actually a local MP. She represents the seat next door, which, incidentally, I mean, she therefore has a close relationship with the Chief Constable for a couple of reasons. So the idea that she wouldn't have had conversations, with the police, with some of the local councillors who were on the committee that decided there should be a ban, some of whom were actively campaigning for Israeli teams to be barred from all international competitions because they just have a particular problem with Israel. She obviously does have relationships with these people, and I'm sure conversations would have taken place at different points. I don't think she actively wanted the ban. I don't think she was driven by the communalism herself or anything like that. I think she was presented with a likely decision by the police in advance, and she, I think, failed as Home Secretary at this point because she should have really interrogated that, because it was a really extreme thing to do. Even if there had been legitimate intelligence behind it, she should have wanted to know what it was and why they were reaching that extreme conclusion.
Yes, it was an unprecedented decision in that area,
happen.
Right?
So I would just say I think she's, in this particular way, I think she failed as a Home Secretary, but not for that reason.
What does the word communalism mean?
Well, I think it's when you have communities represented by leaders who represent them as an ethnic bloc or a racial bloc or a religious bloc. And when you enter into that kind of world, lots of the things that we take for granted, I think, about the way the criminal justice system should treat us all equally.
As individuals?
Yes, as individuals, regardless of who we are and what colour we are, what God we worship, etc. And the trust that the system is going to be fair, and the sense that decisions are going to be made genuinely for, even if you might disagree with them, the person making the decision is doing it in the pursuit of some sense of the common good. That all flies out of the window. Frankly, it's why we have things like power sharing in Northern Ireland, because if you just have straightforward elections, people would feel, well, it's getting a bit more complicated now, the demographics, but historically people would have said, well, the Protestants and the Unionists would always win a majority and the Catholics would be discriminated against, which is why we ended up with a power sharing agreement. If we're talking about parts of the country where the elections are contested and decided on the basis of ethnic identities, that's terrible. But we are starting to see that with the election of these Gaza independents.
And might one say that the state and parts of the state are making that become true because of their behaviour, as with the case of the West Midlands Police?
Yes.
So I think of law and order as being, you commit a crime, you get punished. They see it in terms of managing the community.
Yes, I'm afraid so. They seem to place an idea of what they call community cohesion before the primary purpose of their institution. In the case of the police, that's obviously enforcing the law. And this is what I tried to say in Prime Minister's questions today. You've got the police, you've got the Crown Prosecution Service, you've got the prison service. There is evidence across the whole of the criminal justice system that these things are being twisted because the state itself is doing deals with Islamists. It's compromising with people with whom it should never compromise. And we should have that properly investigated so we can cut it out.
And yet, for all this obsession with ethnicity, the same attention is not paid to the thoughts and feelings of Jewish Britons. Because we're talking here about an AI that invented Jewish football fans behaving badly, the police then presenting that as evidence why Jewish football fans had to be advised not to come.
Yeah.
Imagine if AI and the police had done the same about people from the Afro-Caribbean community.
Of course.
But
there
it's
is
Jews,
there is a double standard. There is
a
double standard, and in the words of David Baddiel's book, it feels that Jews don't count. And anti-Semitism is ignored or tolerated in far too many aspects of public life. So I actually went to the match, by the way, because I'm an Aston Villa fan myself, and I got there early so I could go to meet some of the protesters and just.
Oh, I remember the video
them.
Footage of this. Yeah.
Yeah. They were quite
you
aggressive.
had a bit of a testy time.
Yeah, and one of the things that I learned, which actually afterwards I thought, well, maybe I'm still on the uptake. Maybe this was always obvious, but I was talking to this one guy who was like masked and hooded, And he said that they shouldn't be allowed here. They're all terrorists. They're all like child killers and
genocidal
and
maniacs
responsible for a genocide. And I said, what the footballers are? And he said, yes. I said, how are footballers responsible for those things? And he said, well, in Israel, everyone has to do national service, so they've all been in the IDF, so they're all guilty. And when you, I think he said that everyone has to swear allegiance to the devil, which is obviously insane. But it made me realise that when they chant death to the IDF, they're not cheering on one side in a war in a blood-curdling kind of way. It is the latest code for all Israelis and almost certainly all Jews.
Yeah. The only people that have to pledge allegiance to the devil are the recipients of press cards, aren't they? It's one of the conditions.
Lawyers and the HMRC.
Look,
as well.
we're taking the podcast well down to the wire, like in a grudge football match, because this is going out. And as it goes out, just to say, Craig Guildford remains in place. Who knows if that will still be the case tomorrow, when we'll be back 5 p.m.
If you're enjoying our journalism, why not sign up to From the Editor, our free email newsletter? Start your day with the latest news and opinion, plus our bite-sized puzzles. Scan the QR code to sign up free today.